It is 7:02, so we will call to order for the regular board meeting for June 21st. If we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Go ahead and call the roll.
Ms. Brookmeyer,
Here.
Mr. Green.
Here.
Mr. Richards,
Here.
Mr. Moses,
Excused.
Mr. Giroux, Mr. Vendatelli,
Here.
Ms. Knox here.
Okay, I will take a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to the superintendent's update.
Slide. Oh, there we go. Okay, quick update on the bond. Oh, hang on. So, this is the slide. We've been working on finalizing everything as we get ready to go out to bid. So what you can see here, these are just the color schemes that we're working with for the new restaurant, the new shoreliner. And again, we're sticking very much so with everything with the rest of the building: red, black, grays, whites. Also this is a layout of what the restaurant, in working with the instructors and the architects and all of that, the goal was to have ample seating so that we would have about 50-60 people could be in there. Their goal is, instead of to be open once a month, they would be open twice a week. So they wanted a smaller space. They wanted a larger kitchen area. And so what you can see here is just kind of what we're looking at. So if you look to the right, that is the entrance to the restaurant. There's a greeter that would be there. And then you can see there's various types of seating. And then at the far end, if you follow that red line, that'll be in the floor, just to kind of keep that open aisleway. Then it will go to an outside area that we can, so if they wanted to expand on warmer days, they could have outdoor seating with that to kind of combine with football games or whatever. So this is kind of what it looks like. Again, with the textures and so on, we're looking at like a resilient type of flooring, so it's easy to clean. We wouldn't have to do a lot of maintenance. We could, if things happen, we could just pull up the individual tiles. And this is what it looks like if you're looking back to the kitchen. So the goal is, again, to keep everything low. We just have for displays if we have any information, but you would be able to see all the way back through the kitchen, as you can see in this rendering. So where are we at with our dates? We have the high school addition site work, so we have to move some utilities and so on. That is out to bid right now. So the plan is to get those bids after the 4th of July week. Then we would have letters of intent with the bid company that we want to go with, so they can begin planning, and then the board would award that in August. Then we're hoping to have the actual construction now of phase 1. The final page turn we bump back because I'll talk about that in a second, but we want to have that out to bid. It'll probably be after 4th of July now, but again, we're still looking at a target date of the board awarding that in August. Then the subsequent phases, phase 2 and phase 3, as we've talked about in the past, those would be November of 2023. We would have the board award that. And then in July of 2024, the phase 3 would be awarded. So this encompasses basically most of that. You can see the restaurants there in the upper left-hand corner. Then you have current plans were for welding to be next to the restaurant, because both those are very intensive in the amount of utilities that we have to line. So it was just cheaper and less expensive to put them in the new addition than it was to tear up the current floors in other classrooms. Then robotics area was going to be at the back. We were taking 2 current classrooms, combining them into one. And then our engineering area was going to make use of a classroom that's currently existing. And then auto area, we were doing an addition on to the back to extend that and making use of the current area that was previously constructed for autos actually. However, as we've been going through meeting with the teacher for autos, they expressed an interest to really have more lifts in there. And that's been the challenge, is how do we fit? We want to have 6. So then if you have kids in the class, you would have 4 kids working on a vehicle at a time. Actually, they put 2 in the classroom, then 2 work on, then they alternate, and that's with the Parapro. So that would give the best experience. So we didn't have too many kids on there. So we've been now looking at ideas and how to do that. So one concept is to put welding in where autos currently is, then put autos up by the restaurant. And so we're working on that concept. Another concept is then we wouldn't have to do the addition off the back for welding. The problem is if you do an addition to a building, you have to maintain the current exterior wall there. And so you have a 2-hour fire rated wall, which meant we would have to stick with the current bay and filter all of the cars through that bay door. But if we put it out over here, then we wouldn't have to worry about that. We wouldn't have to have the 2-hour rated wall, so it would work out better. Another option that we're looking at is to then rearrange, put welding back where autos is now, move engineering out, put robotics down into the 2 current classrooms, and then move autos to the back, and then we could have bays out off the east side of the building. So we're working through those options. That's the last phase before we will send it out to bid. So questions on any of this?
I have a quick question
Yeah.
for you, and not specifically pertaining to what you're talking about, but what you're showing me did kind of like spark my interest for something else a little bit. With regards to the type of equipment for the CTA courses that we have at Anchor Bay, how are the students trained for using car lifts and or welding equipment?
Well, that's part of the course. So the first part of any of those CT courses, they do safety so that they know how to use those appropriately.
Mhm.
And then, so once they kind of pass through those modules, then it moves on to the next phase of, so that they're trained on the equipment as it goes. So the beginning class is typically much of, let's work on how do you use the individual pieces of equipment. Then you move into a second phase course that is now the advanced.
Mhm.
And it's more troubleshooting and actual problem solving, things like that, using all the tools that they've been trained on.
Makes sense. Thank you.
So you put out all 3 options for bid to get them back?
No, we didn't put them out to bid. Right now, we're still working on just
On what your preference is, you're only gonna put one out for bid.
one will go out. to
one
bid,
of the
yeah.
options.
So what we do is internally, the state is constantly, as Todd was mentioning, they have numbers that we use for construction, what they're seeing, and then we check that with the costs that they have. And so then we do a prediction based at trying to fit it into our budget that we had set when we passed the bond. And so then only one will go out there.
Okay,
Okay, oh, and then here's another just overhead view of the restaurant. So again, you can see 2/3 of it will be student work area. And then the restaurant will actually double as the classroom. So when they're not open, students will use it as a classroom, much like they do now. And then when it's open, it'll be a functioning restaurant, and they'll have enough stations finally, so that every student will have a place. And won't be, if you ever look back in the kitchen now, they're kind of on top of each other. So this will just give them a much better working in teaching environment for all of that. Okay, moving on. New logo, just want to kind of give you the background on that. So quick history of the Anchor Bay logo. It was hard to kind of going back and trying to track down, looking into your books and doing whatever we could. So from the creation of the district as Anchor Bay in 1949 to 1989, this was the predominant logo that had been used. Then in 1989, we switched to the larger AB with the ATB. Then in 2018, we switched to the current ATB that has been used. And these are the predominant logos. I'm going to say nothing was really kind of official. Nothing was, there are a myriad of versions. And as you recall from strategic planning, when we met, this was something people talked about with wanting to rebrand, have an identity, because if you look below is the history of the Texas A&M logo, and you can see, so back in 81, they went to, it was a larger A&M with the T. And then as that shrunk, Anchor Bay shrunk theirs as well to kind of mimic that as it goes along. We did not add the current iteration where Texas is behind it, though, as you know. So part of that, having the strategic planning meeting and discussing all of that, we also looked at, this is actually from 2016 or 2017. On the right, the students, this is something I hear all the time from kids. They want a mascot and somebody who can dress up as it and all that. We had talked about a possible mascot. That was an example that we used when we formed our subcommittee there of some type of sailor. And that was, even though the tar name comes from the Jack Tar, which is a sailor, that was going to be on the right there at the time, Titus the Tar. So that, but as we kind of met as a committee, there was this whole discussion about, do we center around the tar, which was not a lot of people because the confusion over what's a tar. And it's the same thing with our logo. I can tell you as I'm out and about, and if I have the ATB, people are like, oh, Texas A&M. And then no, this is Anchor Bay. Well, then why is the T? They're like, well, we're the Tars. But Tars was not kind of one of the things. So then we started talking about logos. And just to give you an idea, because one of the discussions was our colors are red and white. And yet here's an example from just the current uniforms. Most of our uniforms now incorporate some type of black uniform. In fact, boys basketball went from red and white uniforms to black and white uniforms. And you can see the Anchor Bay, that's the font is totally different on each one. So we're like, what can we do to kind of make it more consistent? So we worked with Schoolmark because we use Jostens for our graduation materials. They offer this as a free service. They worked up samples of different ones, and we had some with tars in there. Then we did a vote on the committee. The middle one on the right, the AB with the black anchor, that had the most votes from the committee at that point. We had the lower one that says tars. That was our student rep. That was the one that our student rep wanted. And then the other ones had like just different takes on it. So the feedback at this point was, it's a little overcomplicated on some of these. What can we do to kind of simplify these? So then we went back to the designer, and they did some research, and we know upfront that West Bloomfield uses something that's somewhat similar. So then we were like, what can we do different and more simple? So then they came back and they had the two options on the left. And so we had them work them up in different color options, because depending on what you're wearing, if it's a red shirt or a white shirt or a black shirt, you're going to want a different logo to go on it. So then got some feedback on that as well. And then we sent these four options out basically to the public with the thought was originally we would do 2 rounds. We'd have the 4, and then if nobody got above 50%, then we'd do a second round. But when we did it, logo 4 ended up getting 51% of the vote. So there was no need to do the second round. We had just shy of 3,000. And this tracks exactly along with what we had on the bond when we put surveys out in number of responses and so on. So we limited it. So It tracked by their IP address if they were going, so you couldn't vote more than once from the same device and so on. So to try and make it more difficult for people to do that. So then this was basically the two options that people settled on. So then didn't really want, we were going to stretch it out a little bit longer, but then we came up with, we were redoing the gym floor. And the company was like, well, we can do it, it'll be less expensive if you do it now than if in the middle of our busy season. So then that kind of moved everything up. So because we had that and we could save money on the gym floor, and we wanted to have this as part of it. So that's now been integrated and like we've discussed before. So we went with the black anchor. So this is our old gym floor, just so you can see one end of it. And then you can see in the middle had a very minimal, said anchor bay, smaller anchor. Tires was in a more of a script font. And this is the floor as it was completed. It'll be the second coat, final coat will go on. So this is the same floor. We went with the black border again to incorporate what teams are already doing, the red bleachers. So we figure this plays off of the black ring that's already there with the new logo. Tires is a little bit more pronounced on the court. And these are just different angles. So this is from one end and then again, this thing. So it's coming out very well. We did, instead of painting the 3-point area, we went with the stained area to set it off. I think it worked out very well. As we stay in the outside of the court, so then the court itself is a little bit lighter, the majority of that. So thoughts, questions, concerns on the bond or the logo? Okay, thank you.
Next item on our agenda is the hearing of the public. So if you wish to address the board on an agenda item, you can complete a brief request, turn them in up. Actually, you can turn them in up at the table where you take them and they'll get them to us. I do have a couple already for tonight. We just ask that you please refrain from commenting about specific employees and direct those to them personally and not in the public forum. Okay, first one that I have for tonight is Mr. Forrest Boyles.
So I have two topics I would like to address tonight. Remind you that you are elected representatives of this community, and as a member of this community, I stood here before this board and asked them to, at the very least, rediscuss part of voting on outcasting students from extracurricular activities based solely on academic grade points, which you chose to ignore and voted anyways. Barring these students from activities such as prom, sports participation, etc., not because they destroyed school property, harassed fellow students or staff, not from inappropriate behavior, not any of this, purely by grade average alone. You voted to outcast a student that is already struggling. These same students that bring in state funding that helps keep you up over the head and a paycheck in your pocket. So what are the issues with these kids? Are there learning disabilities? Is there something going on in the family life? Who cares? Who cares? Let's just push them aside. Even though studies show that participation in such extracurricular activities helps build better social outlook, positive attitude, and higher academic aspirations. So I say shame on you for that. Next, I would like to discuss, and I apologize, I even just did very uncomfortable public speaking. I would like to discuss that quickly that was presented by the superintendent. He You showed in your presentation that we can consist of nothing more than the reproductive system embodying proper body nomenclature and avoiding the subject matter of abortion. That's what you showed. Now, why you feel this needs to be introduced to 11-year-olds is still beyond me. But not until Mr. Vinatelli brought up a parent's concern, and I thank you for that, sir, doing your job. Did we find out that masturbation is included in this curriculum? Why is that? It seems a little shady to me that it was not identified on the monitor. When questioned, the superintendent stated it was a state mandate. That's not true at all. I looked up the mandate that you gave out, the number that you, the state number that you gave out, and what it actually states is, you have to discuss HIV and AIDS, which I still do not agree with, but the rest is purely 100% by district choice. Why do you feel this is an appropriate topic to have with children?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Why is there such a dire need to sexualize our children?
Sir, your time has elapsed.
Having awkward conversations at this age is open up potential inappropriate behavior by students and teachers alike.
Sir,
Is that your goal?
thank you. Your time has elapsed.
I don't know what kind of.
We have a 3-minute.
So.
They are.
We can
sir,
present that to you at a later date, sir. Sir,
So all you're really doing,
point of order, Madam President.
you're just trying to shut me up. That's all you're doing.
Sir, this is our business meeting.
This is my meeting also.
No, you are invited to give your feedback at this meeting as we have given you, and in our bylaws, we do have a time limit stated. We don't vote on that per meeting, but it is a part of our administrative guidelines and bylaws. So yes, you stated your opinion for 3 minutes.
Approximately 1 minute to go.
You are welcome to contact any of us
Yeah.
outside of this.
See,
So I will respectfully ask you, sir,
starting with you, I recognize this. You remember this come voting time.
okay,
Shame.
thank you. Okay, next I have Angela Jaro, Leanne Vong, Megan Doby, and Savannah Adams.
Class of 2024, we would like to propose one fall graduation. As we commence our high school careers, we would like to commemorate our time together to the fullest. One way to do this is a unified graduation. From a student's perspective, many graduates last year together to see all their peers graduate with them. As a final goodbye, we will all graduate with some memorable experience. To gain a better understanding of these courses, we started a decision of 364 tickets. If you don't mind, we'd like to just review the different information from one.
Sure.
However, we can count that ranking feature is one way to on the venue options have been divided between income, arena, regular ranking of the event. If any of the everyone in front of the circle as representatives of the class of 2021,
Thank you.
Okay, having no more submissions for open forum, I will move next to the budget presentation.
Tim, if I could have you pull up that other document that I earlier shared with you. Should be the 22-23 final. Well, yeah, if you'll focus on the third column there, we'll go through the 22-23 budget amendment. This is the final budget amendment. You'll recall back in February of 2023, we did an amendment to the budget, and this is the final budget for 22-23 that we are presenting this evening. So I'd like to start by kind of highlighting the revenues. You can see there that we are proposing a final budget of $79.28 million. That is an increase of about $3.8 million over the previous $75.4 million that we had budgeted back in February. The primary reason for this increase is that we received a MIPSR's one-time $3.3 million pass-through in March, I believe, is when we received that. So it was subsequent to the February 22 board approved budget. And so we incorporated that in. You can see in the state sources, there's an increase from the amended to the final proposed of about $3.9 million. Like I said, 3.3 of that is for the MIPSR's pass-through. We also received a grant 31AA, which dealt with mental health, of about $600,000. So that's really what makes up the vast majority of that $3.8 million variance. On the expenditure side of things, you can see that we went from $73,000 to $76,000 or $76 million, I'm sorry, dollars, an increase of about $3.3 million as well. And what that is as we talked about earlier in the budget hearing that we had that pass through. So we received the $3.3 million on the revenue side, and then we increased our expenditures by $3.3 million for the retirement expense, and then pass that back through to MIPSR's. So that's why you see that increase of about $3.3 million. Those were the primary drivers of that increase between our amended budget in February and our final budget in that we're proposing for 22-23 here. So that will bring our revenue and expenditures to about $2.8 million. And we are proposing to add that dollar amount to the beginning fund balance of $7 million, which would bring our ending fund balance to about $9.9 million, just under $10 million, or 13% of our expenditures. Also, I'll just reiterate, as we discussed in the budget hearing, we believe 15% is our target that we would like to get to. We feel that target is important because it will provide adequate reserves so that we are able to weather the fall when we do not receive a state aid payment and avoid borrowing for operating purposes. And that's always good because we don't have to pay any interest expense or any of the costs associated with taking that borrowing. That's money that we can plow back into education. And then also, you know, obviously having a surplus is a nice thing to have if the board decides that they want to take on a few new initiatives at any point in time. We would have funds available to potentially take on those initiatives. So that is the budget that we are proposing for the end of this fiscal year. And I would take questions at this time.
If anyone has any questions, feel free to jump in. Okay, I
All right,
think
hearing none,
everybody's good.
that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a presentation on the educational goals with Mr. McDonald.
Okay, good evening, Board. It's my pleasure this evening to present to you the 98B goal presentation for the end of the year. As you may recall, I was here in February and gave you an update on our mid-year goals. And I'm just going to kind of highlight some of the buildings as we go through. Tim, if you could scroll as I keep going, but we have established building goals and they're real, pretty simple. And it was to show growth in both reading and math in all grade levels and within all subgroups. So the growth is measured by a benchmark assessment, and we use the NWEA assessment or test. And we give it K through 11, but the benchmark goals are K through 8. So we take it, the NWEA test 3 times in the fall, the winter, and in the spring. And that NWEA test scores students based on a RIT score, which is nationally normed. And when I was here in February, I presented to you the scores that you can see. If you scroll up just a little bit more, you'll see it on the left-hand side. There's 2 tables. One has mid-year, one has the summer. And we're going to start with taking a look at our middle schools. But again, as I talked about at the mid-year point, the buildings were able to review the scores, the data, and NWEA, and they also use IXL as a big strategy, which is a computer adapted test that also works on specific skills in both math and reading based on individual student scores. Those 2 tests are correlated, so there's feedback between the 2. And so I'm going to go over the, again, if we have more than 30 students in a particular demographic, it's considered a subgroup. So I'm pleased to say that in all areas, we saw significant growth. And we'll start by taking a look at Middle School North with reading. You can see that all students on average improve their reading RIT score by 4 points from the mid-year point to the end of the year. So that's not from the fall, but from the midpoint on. And in math, we saw a little bit larger gains, an average of 9 points. And you can see throughout the subgroups that every subgroup grew somewhere between 3 and 4 points for reading and 7 and 9 points for the math. If we go ahead and scroll to South, the next page, Jim. At South, we're going to see very similar results for both reading and math. So in all areas and all subgroups, they also showed growth. And on average at South, they were in reading, they improved by 4 points. And it was consistent throughout the subgroups. And then again in math, they grew on average 8 points in their written score. And again, as you get in the higher grades, the rate of growth tends to slow. So that for middle school growth, they did a really nice job. It was real consistent between both North and South. So if we scroll to the next few pages, we'll take a look at our elementaries. And again, elementaries, the same strategies are used. They use IXL to help with some of those skill, and of course, looking at the NWEA data and adjusting any instructional strategies along the way. So starting with, we should be looking at Ashley. And at Ashley, you can see again, solid growth in all the areas. In reading, starting with there, the average student grew by 14 points. And again, it was consistent throughout the subgroups. When we look at middle or at math, at Ashley, the average student grew by 15 points. So we saw quite a bit of growth at the elementary level, kind of highlighted by our kindergarten there in math, and that was 18 points of growth. So that's really strong growth data at Ashley. Looking now at Naldred. Just like Ashley, they show growth in all areas. And looking at reading, we're looking at an average of 15 points of growth. It again is just excellent growth and very consistent throughout the subgroups. Looking ahead, well, in reading, a real nice highlight there was 19 points of growth with our kindergarten. And looking at math, you'll see same pattern, 16 points of growth on average. And here we saw the highest growth in our first grade. Take a look at Great Oaks next. Again, you'll see the same pattern. That's going to be throughout every school. Reading was an average of 13 points of growth and highlighted by kindergarten with 14. Math is real similar, 15 points, 14 points, excuse me, of growth. And our subgroup highlight in that one was the boys, and on average, boys increased by 17 points in math. So next we'll look at Lighthouse. Again, starting with reading, very similar scores. You'll see an average growth of 14 points from fall to spring. And the largest growth again was in kindergarten, which was 16 points. Very consistent throughout. And then again, that was, excuse me, for the math, and for reading, it was 14. Moving to Lottie Schmidt. At Lottie, in reading, there was an average of 13 points of growth throughout the building. And it was highlighted by the most growth was at kindergarten at 21 points. So that was the largest subgroup at any school. And looking at math, average growth was 16 points. And again, really consistent. Kindergarten was at 19 in math. Finally, taking a look at McCants, really solid growth there as well, starting with reading, looking at 12 points on average. The boys were the largest growth subgroup at 15 points. Right behind them was our economically disadvantaged students. They grew at 14 points, by 14 points. And then looking at math, average student grew 14 points. And then again, just really consistent throughout. The boys were the largest growth subgroup at 16 points. So as you can see throughout the year, and from midpoint to the end of the year, you can see we really had consistent growth throughout the district. And, you know, an average of 12 to 14 points is really excellent growth in those areas. And with the strategies that the principals and teachers put in place, you know, worked well, clearly paid off. And, you know, as growth always is, we'll take this data. We started actually yesterday, had another NWEA and IXL training with our principals here. And they're really excited about, you know, taking this growth and building on it for next year. So we went into some more of the data and more of the intricacies and really drilling down to be able to keep this growth going. So that concludes my presentation on our educational goals, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
I had one question. How are all of our classrooms given IXL to use?
So every school has IXL, and in some schools, a lot of times we use it with our at-risk students, the most at-risk students. And we also, when we talk with the principals, we're going to propose to increase those so that it's more of a, in almost all the elementary buildings, the principals requested second grade through fifth for all students. And then one or two of them, and some of it's based on technology and also their what they thought they could use responsibly and not, you know, something that they would be wasteful. Some buildings ask for first through fifth. So that was a discussion, and then something that we'll bring to Superintendent Jankowski and talk to him about, you know, as we plan our budget for next year to adjust those accordingly. But my recommendation would be that it is certainly showing growth. It's showing that it's working. And we're building the capacity to use those licenses. So I think it would be a wise decision to increase them.
And just some background on it. This was part of the ESSER funds as we were to help to catch kids up.
Right.
First, last year we piloted it and we didn't use all of, because it's a per student subscription. So we didn't use all of those. So then, but we knew it would grow. So then we expanded it. And then I think we just barely went over the subscriptions that we had. So we know
did.
that demand's growing. We're just kind of trying to follow what they want to use on the building level. So our goal is to expand it.
Yeah, we had 1,550 licenses this year, which was up from I think 1,000 the year before, and we actually used 1,578. So they let us sneak by a few, because and they were used. So
I just have one quick question. Under the reporting category, I keep saying in person. Do we have any students that are still out from COVID before?
not, we have very few, and a lot of it is due to more of a medical situation or
Sure.
something like that. So not enough to be a subgroup.
Right, yeah, so obviously less than 30, so.
It's real
okay,
negligible, you know, amount of students. And some buildings have none
Okay,
that are, they're all in person.
thank you.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is communications.
Yes, I shared with you just a packet of emails that I received from parents who last year I didn't receive any of these. It was great to see that these were all positive emails about they were just happy with the direction of the district and what was going on in their child's classroom. And they wanted to share that either with the teacher, the board, or the administration.
And then the next item is the consent agenda. So tonight's consent agenda consists of the approval of minutes from the May 24th regular meeting and the May 24th special meeting, the personnel report, the financial report, and the bills payable for May of 2023. Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with one asterisk if I could. On the special board meeting and the call to order, the meeting is referenced as the regular meeting. And I believe it should say the special board meeting.
Is there a second on that
I
motion?
will second that with the asterisk.
Any discussion?
Go ahead and call the roll.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes. Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Vendatelli.
Yes.
Motion passes. So we'll move into new business. First item we have our administrative contract. Computer's scrolling slow. So the following administrators are being represented for contract extension with Anchor Bay School District as administrators through June 30th of 2025. So the recommendation is that the board approve the administrator contracts through June 30, 2025 as presented. Is there a motion for this item?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes. Is it typical to recommend a contract extension for someone who doesn't work for the district yet?
Well, we're just putting everybody on the same list because generally you get a 2-year contract when you start. And so for everybody else, it's a rolling, so current contracts for them end at the end of the next school year. So we're extending it. So this is just putting everybody on the same resolution. So in the future, we can make sure, because we found in the past, sometimes if they weren't on there, they didn't get. So it's not really an extension. They were already approved for their initial contract of 2 years. It's just putting, so we can keep everything to make sure that we don't miss anybody.
So everybody on the list that we've recently hired already has a 2-year contract that we've approved.
So yes, the people that were hired originally are hired for 2 years. This is just puts typically building administrators, central office and so on, have a 2-year rolling, and then usually superintendent's a 3-year rolling.
Further discussion? Okay, go ahead and call the roll.
Ms. Knox, yes. Mr. Vendatelli,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue.
Motion passes. The next is the resolution on the state aid note. As you heard, if you were present for the special meeting, the district intends to participate in the state aid note borrowing for the 23-24 school year. We would intend to borrow 1.2 million to ensure that we would have adequate operating funds to pay our obligations in a timely manner. The funds will come to the district in late August of this year and help to offset the fact that our state aid payment does not come until the month of September. So it's the hope that next year, as the district's fund balance grows, we should have, if all goes as planned, sufficient reserves to sustain our operations and obligations of payment without any need to borrow. But in that case, so for the recommendation is that the board approve the state aid note resolution for the 23-24 school year.
So moved.
Second. Okay, any discussion? I call the roll.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes. Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Vendatelli.
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
Want to interrupt you? We were between the 2 meetings. I didn't notice, but our newest employee, our director of elementary education, is here in the back. So Dr. Laura Dixon, I don't know if you want to say any comments or.
Thank you. Congratulations and
Welcome
welcome.
aboard. Thank you for coming out tonight.
Our next item is the resolution for the school bond loan fund. So this is a loan fund, revolving fund every year required to perform, the district's required to perform fiscal analysis to determine if our tax revenue from taxpayers is sufficient to pay our bonded debt obligations for the school year. So for the 23-24 school year, we anticipate that the district will have excess funds of about 3.8 million that will be used to pay the outstanding balance of roughly 22.9 billion. I'm sorry, million.
Million.
I said billion first time. I meant 3.8 million excess funds to pay our outstanding balance of 22.9 million currently held by the school loan revolving fund. So the resolution before the board authorizes payment of the excess tax funds to the school loan revolving fund as satisfying the portion of the district's outstanding debt. So the recommendation is for the board to approve the school bond loan fund as presented. And I will clarify once again that it was million, not billion, 3.8 million. in excess funds for our balance of 22.9 million. So is there a motion for the school bond loan fund?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, call the roll.
Ms. Knox, yes. Mr. Vendatelli,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, we have our 23-24 original budget approval. So, Mr. Rathman presented, the board will review the proposed revenues and expenditures expected for 23-24 at this point. And of course, the recommendation is to approve the budget for the 23-24 year as presented. Is there a motion for the budget?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion or further questions? Seeing none, go ahead, call the roll.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Vendatelli,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes. Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes. Okay. Motion passes. And now we have the final budget amendments for 22-23. Those were also presented by Mr. Rathbun tonight. So the recommendation is to approve the final budget amendments for 22-23. Is there a motion for this?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Go ahead and call the roll.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Vendatelli,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes.
Motion passes. I apologize, I just lost my place. The next item is the Barton Mallow contract. So before the board is the contract for Barton Mallow to perform the general contractor services for Anchor Bay related to our construction for the 2023 bond projects that we approved in our bond application to the Department of Treasury. Barton Mallow has a history with Anchor Bay schools and is familiar with their school buildings. So we would be moving forward. And the district's confident we will partner well with Barton Mallow. So the recommendation was to award to approve Barton Mallow's contract as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, go ahead and call the roll.
Ms. Knox, yes. Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Vendatelli,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Next item is our athletic training contract. And this is an agreement between Health Quest and our district. The agreement will provide a full-time trainer to the district for about $40,000 a year. This was made at the request of the high school athletic director to address the pressing needs of the district. Our current trainer is only part-time and not always available to attend events for which a trainer might be needed. So the district feels this arrangement with Health Quest would be beneficial for our student athletes to ensure safety while participating in our extracurriculars. So the recommendation is to approve the athletic trainer contract as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second
I'll second.
discussion?
Does this mean that we are no longer going to use our current trainer?
No, we will, he has let us know that he is nearing the end of his time. He's getting ready for retirement and we will still use him. He just doesn't want to do all of the events. So he will be, if we have 2 events going on, we will still use him for the other ones, but this will give him the ability to kind of work with the other person a little bit and then slowly back out over the next couple of years.
So the $40,000, that is for a flat rate fee for every athletic event at home, I take it, or away also?
Basically, wherever we need the trainer.
All right. So in a case where the current trainer wants to continue doing, does he volunteer?
No, we pay.
So if he wants to continue to do what he's doing, we'll not invite Health Quest and he'll cover those games?
Well, we have so much demand now with like events and so on that if, say, for example, we have football at home, he would probably do the home game. And then if there's an away game going at the same time, then they will do it. So this will now provide us, because he has another full-time job, he can't always be here for everything. And so now this will give us somebody, so we're guaranteed we're covered for every event, and then he will help cover if there's overflow, if we have multiple events going on.
So Health Quest will be our primary and he'll be ad hoc. Okay.
Any
Yeah,
other?
and he's aware of all of this, just so you know, we've had this discussion. Yeah.
Mrs. Knox, yes. Mr. Vendatelli,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Burkmeyer.
Yes. Motion passes. Next, we have a security resource officer contract. So this is the agreement between Chesterfield Township and Anchor Bay Schools to provide for the district to have a full-time SRO from the Chesterfield Police Department. Although the new fee structure increases the burden on the district, we feel that this partnership with Chesterfield Township is very valuable and a resource to assist our district in keeping our students and staff safe. So the recommendation is still to approve the security resource officer contract with Chesterfield as presented. Is there a motion for this item?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Where will this school resource officer be stationed?
As it's Chesterfield, typically it'll be in South. That's where it's the greatest need, and then this SRO will then rotate between the schools within that jurisdiction.
Okay, is this a backfill? I believe we have 3 school resource officers currently.
Yeah, so this is last board meeting, we hired our school director of safety. And so this is replacing that position, which she was our SRO. So now she's on our staff. So this is backfilling that and bringing the contract current, because the contract hadn't been brought up to date for several years. So this increases our cost share to, we're paying 75% of the cost, which basically covers the 181 student days that we have.
Okay.
I just have a basic question. This doesn't just pertain to this particular hire, but do we go through any interview process with the SRO officers?
Yeah, so then the people who have thus far showed interest with the department have been actually visiting the building and meeting with staff members and administrators and so on.
What was the dollar amount cost currently?
It's roughly about $60,000 or so.
So we're still paying, so the cost is still roughly 60,000. We're just paying 75% of it now?
No, we are now paying, we weren't paying, we're paying 75% of the cost of the officer for Chesterfield.
So the 60,000 was our
That was,
cost currently for the
that was
sheriff?
before, yeah. And in order for them, so in year 1, it'll be 97.5. So we're paying a larger percentage of their cost.
So we're taking on a better than 50% increase? When was the last contract written, drawn up?
Last contract, I believe, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago.
Mr. Vendatelli,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes, Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
No.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Drew.
Yes.
Motion passes. Our next item is a land purchase. We will call this parcel 1. This is at Arnold Road and County Line property. So the property is roughly 4.6 acres. The intent is to develop and utilize this property for the construction of residential housing by the district's construction trades students. So there would also be many real life opportunity for other CTE programs to also participate in this venture, not just construction trades, but marketing and business of financing, selling homes once constructed. So the purchase agreement is for $249,900. So the recommendation on this parcel is to approve the Arnold Road County Line land purchase.
I'd make that motion.
Okay, any discussion?
So real quick, I was reading some notes, so if you mentioned it, I apologize. This is in the city of New Baltimore, and it has already been platted and approved by their planning and by their city council, I believe. So for us to take over this project we're not starting from the ground up. It should be a fairly as quick as government works. A quick government process to reopen this when we're ready to actually complete these programs. I know Mr. Drew has been a proponent of this for better part of 5 or 6 years. And certainly working in the trades, he understands the shortage that we have, and we think this is a great opportunity really close to the school that we'd be able to get our students involved in through these CTE programs.
Yeah, and if they approve it, there's the plan that was approved before, if they reapprove it, there would be 11 sites, so we could build 11 homes there.
Yeah, this is probably one of the best opportunities I've seen come across this board in a while. Obviously, it's something near and dear to my heart, being a plumber and being in the building trades. I think this is going to be a very big highlight for the district and for our CTE programs. I'm looking forward to, hopefully this passes tonight and we get that piece of property and we get on that right away. There's obviously, everybody knows there's a need for people everywhere, but in the trades, that pipeline is broken. And if we could be the school that brings a lot of them there, I think it'll bring kids over here to be able to work on real live systems in high school. And there'll be plenty of building trades groups that'll be wanting to partner with us. So I think this will be a great opportunity for Anchor Bay and for the students of Anchor Bay. So great job by Phil and everybody that worked on this. So
I'd just like to add, I hope that before we actually, everything starts rolling with the trades working on the site, maybe we can have a ground breaking. Kind of bring some attention to what we're doing.
I'd love to see that, and I'd love to see that futuristic. And I know I've talked about it with Mr. Jankowski and with our building trades. The CTE is having those. I know some schools are doing it, but you do the signing for sports day, do the signing for when our kids go off into it's not like the old days where they say, oh, you can't go to college, you'll go to trade school. Trade school is, you can make a really good living in that. And we need to highlight that, have like a signing day for kids that go into the trades, any kind of trade really, into robotics or anything that they do. So, but yeah, that would be great, Lisa.
I like how you threw that plumber joke in there too.
What that?
The plumber joke, the pipeline is broken.
Like that? Glad you picked up on that.
Wasn't going to give him any credit.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Drew,
Yes.
Mr. Vendatelli,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes, Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer.
Yes. All right. We will move to what we'll call parcel number 2, which is the Beathway property. This property is about 40 acres, sits just behind the high school to the southeast. So the intent of the purchase is to ensure that our district would have adequate real estate surrounding the high school to allow for additional facilities, construction, or roadway in the future. This purchase agreement is for $500,000 and includes a clause to rent the current residential home that's situated on this property for a maximum of 4 years. There will also be closing costs associated with this transaction. So the recommendation is to approve parcel 2 property land purchase.
So moved. Support.
Any discussion on this item?
Is this the property that would give us access to the road to the east of the high school?
Yes.
Okay.
The only thing I want to say is that both of these have been in discussion for a long time. So thank you to everyone who worked on it, because I know there was lots of phone calls and handshaking and promises and all of that good stuff. Such as allowing them to rent that property since we're not using it at the moment. So I know a lot of work went into that. So thank you to everyone who did that.
I would just say, we just this, what, couple days ago, we had a building committee. And along with this property, the property we just voted to purchase. I mean, the grand plan here, strategic plan, if you will, whatever, of what you're putting together and what's going on here is just, it's awesome. It's awesome to see. And getting that piece of property there and possibly, into the future, the one next to it, and kind of seeing something that looks out into a 5, 10, 15-year plan is so nice to see. Again, that was a great meeting. And I just love the vision that's here at Anchor Bay right now. And great job. I just want to say that again, and I look forward to having that piece of property and doing more good things there as well. So, and making that back there by our softball fields and that soccer field, and making that more accessible for people and just a better place to be. And, so thank you.
All right, Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Vendatelli,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes.
Okay. That one passes as well. Next item are award recommendations. So the first item is the scoreboard. So the district received bids on June 6th to replace the scoreboards in the gyms at the high school. Mr. Holston, the athletic director, and Ms. Wiley, the maintenance supervisor, reviewed the bids, completed both post-bid assessments, and the board had the bid tabulation sheets. So it's recommended to accept the bid from Daktronics for $120,708 as they met all of the specifications required. The low bidder did not meet the specifications requested for quality. So Daktronics provided an installation cost from AJ Signs with their bid total $12,500. So this would be charged to the 2022 bond. So the recommendation is to award the new scoreboard to Daktronics and installation to AJ Signs totaling $133,208. Is there a motion for the scoreboard recommendation?
Motion to approve.
Any discussion?
Question, what's wrong with the old school board?
The the old scoreboard is older than most people who are in this room. It is. When they built the new high school, it came from the old high school and it. Announcing most of the games, the one at the west side, I would say. If it can last an entire game without going out, then it's on its last legs. So this will just modernize everything and go along with the new gym.
Okay. And we can't get parts. We
I was gonna
can't.
say,
No.
Yeah,
we
it's
can't get parts
completely-
anymore.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah, it's probably older than all of us.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Knox, yes, Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Vendatelli,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Sparkmeyer.
Yes. All right, the next award, a recommendation is for the high school temperature controls. So again, on June sixth, bids were received for the high school temperature controls project. Barton Mallow reviewed the proposals with the project architect and recommends the following actions. So for the temperature controls, Metro Controls of Clinton Township with base bid amount $1,695,900. Alternate number one, $9,267. The total amount for the recommended award of the bid category 230000 is $1,705,167. The contingency, the project contingency amount is $170,516.70. The total amount for the recommended award of the project contingency is that same amount, $170,516.70. So the recommendation is to approve the total award amount of this bid package of $1,875,683.70 as presented. Is there a motion for the high school temperature controls?
So moved because I have a question.
I'll support just so we can have some discussion.
Okay, go ahead. Discussion.
Can someone clarify what alternate number one is and project contingency amount is? Please.
Todd was involved in the bids. The contingency is just in case we come across things as we're running.
Yeah, it's
through.
just not making sense to me. So if
Yeah.
someone could break it
No,
down.
I agree. This is not as clearly written as it could be. So, yeah, so the two bids that came in, I think is in your packet here. So we got one bid from Carrier and then we received another from Metro Controls. Metro Controls was the low bid. They did have the alternate in there for $9,600, and I believe that was just to add the possibility of one additional control. We weren't sure if we were going to need it or not, so we added that in as an alternate if we do need it. And then the contingency, I think Mr. Jankowski addressed that, is typically there's a 10% that we build into each, just, for inflation, and if we have a change order of some sort because, there's an unanticipated, I should say, complication in putting in the controls. I will mention that this has come in significantly under budget from what we had in the bond. So approximately $850,000, I think, with the contingency less than we had anticipated. So a significant savings over what we had initially budgeted in the bond.
And just to add to that, we also put in there for the addition to high school, because this work is taking place first, that they did a per unit, like for each of the items that, so when we add on, we've locked in those costs for up to the 3 years of work that would go as well.
Okay, if I could repeat it back just so that I know I understand. So we have the 1.6 with an additional 9,000 or so that may not be used.
Correct.
Okay,
It's an alternate.
and then we have the inflation costs built in for the contingency, which is the 170,516. Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion? Okay, go ahead.
Ms. Knox, yes. Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Sparkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeBru,
Yes.
Mr. Vendatelli.
Yes.
Motion passes. So now we're gonna move on to other items, including board comments and points of pride. We will let Mr. Richards start us off.
I'd like to thank the Ashley Elementary students that did a cereal drive for the Feed the Bay and collected 410 boxes of cereal. Congratulations to the class of 2023. I want to thank the teachers and staff that participated or helped in some way for the graduation ceremony. It was great to see the entire board able to attend both graduations as well. The Chesterfield Police Department is accepting students at no cost and now open for incoming 6th through 8th grade students. For the Junior Public Safety Academy, it runs from August 7th to the 18th. If you're interested, please contact Chesterfield Police by July 17th. I'd like to recognize the Anchor Bay High School varsity soccer team for a great season. Congratulations on being district champions. Incoming freshman parent night is August 15th at 6:30 p.m. Freshman orientation is August 28th from 7:55 to 2 p.m. I don't want to try and rush summer, but that's just an FYI. Congratulations to Anchor Bay Tires softball player Deanna Hyde for being chosen first team All-State. Congratulations to state champion Luke Bowman on his personal best times in the 100, 200, and 400 meter adaptive at the MHSAA Division I track and field at the state finals. Awesome job. Congratulations to Thomas Westfall on his second place finish at the state finals as well. I'd also like to congratulate him for being nominated at the Detroit High School Sports Awards for his performance in cross country at last year's MHSA Division I championship. I'd like to thank Ms. Sheridan for inviting us to the Middle School South Makerspace open house. It's great to see what the students can create in that class. Summer swim camp starts July 11th at the Aquatic Center for children ages 6 through 14. If interested, contact the Aquatic Center. It's kind of short this month, I know, but my points of pride this month is our reward schools. I'd like to say congratulations to Great Oaks, McCons, and Lighthouse. Awesome job. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to, something Mr. Richards didn't cover was Charles Downham. He is a 12-year-old Anchor Bay Middle School North student. He had his mural chosen by the New Baltimore Arts and Culture Commission, and it's currently being displayed in the community. I wasn't able to see exactly where, but I believe it's at one of the pavilions, either at Burke or Red Park. It's the Blue Water Tower Park. So congratulations to Charles. I'd like to welcome Dr. Dixon and all of our new hires. Welcome aboard. And just want to wish everyone a safe and fun summer. Kudos to all of you. They're doing summer pop-up classes. Our teacher cadets, there are 27 of them that we hired to work alongside our summer school teachers, band, football, cross country, in regular summer school. There's a lot of students, a lot of teachers still putting in work. So we appreciate that and good job.
Can we get an update on the food truck?
It is in.
I like food trucks. I want to know why it's not, why is it not the board meeting yet? I'm
Yeah.
kind of hungry right now, actually, so.
Yeah, I regret to inform the board that we're running a little behind. We had really hoped that by the end of this month, we would have it in place. Like everything else, we are running into supply chain issues. We are ordering equipment to put in the food truck right now. Much of the equipment, unfortunately, is on back order. So that's creating a little bit of a snafu for us in terms of trying to get that on the road. But hopeful that we're going to work through some things with the construction company that's doing the work for us to see if we can provide some alternates to the equipment that we had initially picked out that might speed that process. But at this point, I think we're probably looking early August.
So no dinner tonight. Congratulations to our girls varsity soccer team. I did go over to Rochester to watch Coach Grammons and the girls unfortunately lose to what is essentially a home crowd. They were playing at Rochester High, but it was Rochester Stony. But our students very loud, very aggressive. Let the hometown crowd know that we travel big. And I was in between the two bleachers downstairs, right off the field, and our students were to the left and their students were to the right. And for being a road game, 45 minutes away, we did pretty well. So Congratulations to Coach Grammons. Congratulations to our teachers that have retired. You earned it. Thank you for all you've done for my kids and everyone else's kids sitting up here. Enjoy your summer and then enjoy not coming back to work around Labor Day. I think that might be all I have. That is.
Speaking of soccer, I apologize. I was late. That's where I was at the soccer banquet. Daughter's on the JV team, so it was great watching the varsity all year. They did awesome. Unfortunately, I had to miss the regional final. I had a convention in Marquette, but I heard about it all from my daughter, so that's great. Congratulations on a great season. Congratulations to all the seniors. I mean, like Mr. Richards said, the graduation is something I look forward to every year. It's just a great feeling to be up there and see all these excited kids. Mostly there's some that aren't going to realize how big it is until later in life. But it's great to see their smiling faces come across that stage, kind of reinvigorate you on here. I'm super, super excited about this. I can't say it enough about the CTE program and the future of it here and all the things that we're working on. So that's the point of pride. I mean, we're just a great district and doing great things. Thanks.
I'd like to echo that a little bit. The graduation ceremony was fantastic, a little bit sunny. I believe Mr. Rathbun promised it would be 60 degrees. He lied. But that's okay. I think of the wind chill was good enough to kind of take the heat off a little bit. But I'd also like to thank Mr. Jankowski. I believe it was last or the previous meeting before that where you laid out the student academic ineligibility policy, specifically describing all the nuances of how Anchor Bay is not leaving any student behind. It is intentionally their choice if they want to get back into eligibility and they can go to all the events that every other student wanted to. It is entirely up to them. And that's and I'm sure that if, asked nicely, Mr. Jankowski would lay it all out again. And thank you all for, patience with regards to, laying out the bylaws. It's 3 minutes. It's always been 3 minutes. And that's it. Thank you.
Before you go, Madam President, I did want to thank the young ladies that came from the high school. So you guys mentioned graduation. It kind of reminded me. Some of your concerns, we as a board have discussed over the past year. We feel your pain. We want some changes as well. It just takes a little bit of time to change that big ship from what we've always done, if you will. I personally am a fan of being at Tar Stadium, but I want to see all of our graduates at one ceremony. I want to comment because it kind of went on deaf ears at that point, but we all heard you. We sat out at the graduation and we're always looking to improve. We actually changed things in between the two ceremonies to make things flow smoother. So don't think that it's an old stick in the mud type scenario. We're very dynamic and we want that class of 24 to get what they want within reason. So please stick to where you're at now and work with, I don't remember who's our teacher that's their representative that kind of helps. them through.
Rachel Kitchen. Yeah.
So, they didn't fall on deaf ears, so stay with it. We agree, we want one ceremony. My position is, our students some of them started in pre-K way back when, and then we get them to high school and we force them to choose whether they're going to be able to graduate with their friends or not. So we as a board agree with you and we're trying to get to that point. It does take some work to get some bleachers and make sure we don't damage our field, but I think maybe 2024 might be the year we can actually pull it off.
Yeah, and also just to echo Mr. Green comments, it's great to see, student involvement as well. So, it's great to see students here at meetings. Thank you.
And great job representing your class. We know that's tough to come up in front of everyone.
It is obviously the same as the rest of the board, but it also was interesting that like you said, Mr. Green said during the graduation this year, it was, I think, the topic of conversation of all of us sitting there in that hour in between that we had of doing, I think everybody's up here vision is to see it be a full student graduation. It's just how, we don't want to tie the administration's hands to how it gets done, but that is something that we're looking at. So when we seen your petition online, it was kind of, it was ironic, I guess. So good job, but great job getting involved. It's good to see young people getting involved and coming here and speaking at the board meeting. It's not always easy. Hell, for some of us, it's not always easy. So great job.
And I think COVID kind of abruptly changed how we were doing things from McMorran to the stadium. And I think we're with all the new things going on, trying to work that out. But we hear that it's a priority for you. We're listening.
All right, and then my comments are, I had the opportunity in the last month to go to a number of district events. I was at the Middle School South Makerspace projects, Ashley Battle of the Books, Great Oaks Field Day, was at a 5th grade end of year party, and then graduation. I think even the board had a good time at graduation up on the stage together in the heat. But you know, I like the end of the year. It's busy, it's crazy for everybody, but you know, it just, as some people have said, seeing everything come together in the district and a lot of the things that various people on the board and administration and even students have wanted for a long time and worked towards, and seeing that kind of come to fruition. And also acknowledging, you know, we have fantastic PTOs, parents, staff that get all of this done with us and as a team. It's just great to see, and really just builds our community even more. And to the ladies that spoke about graduation, I was also really pleased and proud. I know I'm not your parent, but was proud of, you know, just the way it was handled, even on social media and things. You know, I think there's always people willing to try and drag you through the mud with it. And I think you guys took the high road, and it was very respectful and, you know, but to the point. And I was just very proud to see that of our students. So I appreciate that. Okay. Next item is legislative updates. Still
Legislative-
waiting on a budget.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Up until yesterday, I would say there's really no changes. But yesterday, normally kind of like with board meetings, they have to give, they give a notice of what's going to be on the agenda. So like for board meetings, it's 18 hours, but then all of a sudden they had the prohibited subjects bills that had been on there. And when they did that, then all of a sudden they'd get pushed back and then they'd pull them off. And then yesterday, they put them on the agenda in the House right before they went into session, then they voted those out. So tomorrow there's a hearing in the Senate on those. We'll see kind of how that goes. That's a Senate committee. It's not to a vote to the Senate yet. Otherwise, we're getting down to basically a week from today, the House is supposed to adjourn, and they will not, their calendar is set, so they will not have a vote on anything until after Labor Day, unless either a special session or they extend this session or something like that. So we'll hopefully have a budget. Otherwise, we've already, obviously by law, we had to pass our budget today, but we're just guessing at this point. And hopefully if they have that, it's either going to move really quick. The concern is if it doesn't, then it might not be until after Labor Day that we actually know what our budget's going to be next year. And that's legislative update.
Board committee update, building committee met. It's kind of,
Yeah, the building committee met the other night, had a great presentation. And like most of it's what we voted on tonight with the property behind the high school, just over by the Arnold property. And going over where we're at with the bond projects. Again, one that we voted on tonight with the Metro controls and the scoreboard, but also looking at what we're doing at the high school and some alternatives that we're looking at with some space usage, I'll say, but it's all looking good. And it was a great productive meeting and went well. So it's all looking, it's a very professionally done, I just can't say enough of how good everything's going. And it's great to see the projects we're able to do and I can't wait to see what the high school and all these schools look like at the end of this. So great job.
Finance meant today as well, but everything that we basically presentations you had from Mr. Rathbun and some of the votes on the property and Because as much as you like to think that you can have stuff, we still have to approve it at finance before I'll give you the money, John, so. No, you're done. You're done talking. Your time's up.
We get it all.
Motion to adjourn.
No, no. All right, so we have a closed session review for an expulsion hearing. So do I have a motion to enter into closed session?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Ms. Knox, yes. Mr. Vendatelli,
Yes.
Mr. Drew,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Burkmeyer.
Yes. We'll move to closed session at 8:32. Other than if there's any action coming out of this hearing regarding this issue, the only other item left on our agenda is at this point is adjournment. So, all right. Okay. So it is 8:42. We will actually be holding our hearing in open session. So I need a motion to return from closed session.
So moved.
Seconded.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Vendatelli,
Yes.
Mr. Drew.
Yeah.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Ms. Burkmeyer,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes.
All right.
Well, good evening. I'm Mark Prebe, for those of you that are unaware. I'm assistant principal at the high school. Here regarding the expulsion of student 02656. The incident occurred on May 25th, 2023, happened to be the last day of the seniors. Student was witnessed by another assistant principal, Mr. Palmer, kind of hanging around in the parking lot. About 20 after 9 in the morning, roughly around the time where those seniors were, getting prepared to leave the school for the last time. Student did not belong in the parking lot and had not been in the school at all that day. Mr. Palmer, this assistant principal, directed him into the building through the main doors at 9:19. Meanwhile, second hour elapsed. All the seniors went out to the football field for their senior picture. We had our school resource officer along with other deputies and state police on site to help ensure a safe dismissal. So as those seniors were leaving and leaving the premises, all the assistant principals were in the parking lot at that time, along with the police presence, just to ensure a safe dismissal for all students. At that time, once most of the cars had vacated the parking lot, there was a very strong marijuana odor, clear. And we had, myself and Mr. Buskell had narrowed it down to a group of 2 or 3 cars. We alerted Deputy Ferguson, our school resource officer at that time, to come over where we were able to pinpoint the exact vehicle that had its windows cracked. It was very clear at that point where the odor was coming from. At that point, our school resource officer, Deputy Ferguson, identified the owner of the vehicle. We went into the building to find that student and get him out of class to talk with him. Unfortunately, student 02656 was not in class at that time. It's roughly around 10 a.m. So from 9:19 to 10 a.m. They did check in at 9:36, never went to class. So at that point, we searched the building and he was found by security in a bathroom. And at that point, we talked with the student. It was revealed that was their vehicle. Talked again and talking with the student. We searched the student. We deemed it was important to walk him out and search that vehicle. At that time, there was a small shake, if you will. And and there was also a knife in the driver's side door. When we asked the student why the knife was present, it was identified that it was for protection, it's carried for protection. They fear for their safety, fear of getting jumped, raped, attacked. They were very distraught, made it very clear that they carry that for protection. Said it many times. At that point, we walked the student back in and contacted the parent. At that point, the parent was notified that they were suspended 10 days pending further investigation, in that there was a potential for the hearing tonight.
And then Mr. McDonald, I don't know if you want to talk about we've been a certified letter as well and contact the parent to be here tonight.
Yes, I did speak to the parent on the telephone and did also send a certified letter last week. And to notify them of the meeting, on the phone conversation was indicated that they would be here. And tried reaching them again this evening and was unsuccessful.
So if you want to talk about the knife that you found, it looks like it's a pocket knife and it falls under the state Safe Schools Act, I believe.
Yeah, so the knife was I would say a lock blade pocket knife. The blade itself, if you measure it from the hinge, was over 3 inches. Also, the blade itself was over 3 inches in that ballpark. So, you know, there's a picture in the packet of the actual knife with the ruler. And, you know, in our school code of conduct, it clearly, you know, kind of spells out the state mandate as well as, you know, our school expectations.
Yeah. And so
And-
the
In mandatory expulsion.
yeah, because it exceeds the 3 inches, therefore it is what's considered a permanent expulsion. And that would be from all public schools in the state of Michigan as well. And because of the questioning that they did about what was the purpose, there are exceptions to it. And based on the questioning, essentially none of those exceptions, it's basically if somebody told you to bring it, if you forgot that you had it for some reason, you're using it for some other, well, no, because the student in question indicated that it was used for protection or meant to be as a sort of weapon, then again, none of those exceptions apply in this instance.
So did this student finish his current grade? Or because this took place a week or two before the end of school? You know, what if, you know, I don't want to mention his grade, but is he progressing to the next grade, or is he, because of this expulsion suspension, is he staying in his current grade?
From the day he did not attend school the rest of the school year, just based on the time frame.
The student is credit deficient. Yes.
As far as.
So he hasn't advanced the grade, he couldn't take exams, all those things, right?
Correct. No, as far as grades, I don't know how much detail you want me to get into.
No, we can't really get into that, but essentially at the high school level, they still progress by grade in number, but it's they're remaining in what's a credit deficient state.
Okay, all right.
So therefore will not graduate on time based off of the current grades.
The log entries I see are just from 22 and 23. Is this a student that's been in this district for a long time, or is he a relatively newer student?
I believe he's been in the district for some time, for several years.
Any other questions?
To make sure I'm reading this correctly. These quick lookup pages,
Mhm.
That's the number of absences. And that fourth from the right column under S1,
Yep,
that's the total number of absences.
so you should have the semester one as well as the semester two absences there.
Okay, thank you.
Along with all the current grades and showing the credit deficiency.
One question, what is a marijuana shake?
It's just very little, it's like residue. It's just shards.
I guess at this time I'd make a motion to expel student number 02656 based on the evidence and statements from and reports from both St. Clair County Sheriff as well as Mr. Prive.
Any discussion on the motion? Go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. DeRoe.
Yeah.
Expulsion.
Pardon?
Oh, would you be willing to amend your motion to say permanent expulsion?
Because if we don't do that, he's eligible in 6 months, correct?
To make it clear.
After 90 days. That could be a hearing for a week.
So I would be amicable to amending my motion to a permanent expulsion.
Okay, so the motion is amended. Is there a second for it still? Any discussion on that?
Okay, Mr. Green,
Still, yes.
Mr. DeRoe,
Yes.
Ms. Bergmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Vendatelli,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes.
All right, motion passes. We're still in open session, but we have no further agenda items, so I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
You got it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion passes. Meeting is adjourned at 8:54.